Hey guys, it's Dan the Angry Physio, and this week I have three questions about napping. Napping is one of my favorite things to do. Every Wednesday and Friday in the afternoon, I am taking a nap. But I've heard and read some articles lately that kind of make me question whether this is a fantastic idea. So let's tackle three questions today. Question number one: are there adverse effects from napping too long during the day? And of course, that begs the question, what is too long? So we'll talk about that. Uh, Number two, does napping help with workouts, making strength gains, uh, being more athletic? That's an important question. And certainly patients ask me that all the time. Third question, can napping or does napping, is there evidence at all that shows that it helps prevent cognitive decline, age related cognitive decline, dementia, that type of deal. So, today's episode of Angry Physio, let's talk about taking naps. Is it for you? Is it for everyone? Let's find out. So before we dive into the topic of napping, I just want to talk about sleep in general for a minute. Now, there is evidence-based research coming out within the last several years that really bolsters the hypothesis or the notion that good sound sleep helps with a lot of things. And specifically from my vantage point as a PT, if I want to help a patient make strength gains or make coordination gains, or another way of saying that scientifically is increasing their long term neural potentiation, you need to have good sleep. And specific articles that I have read have really shown that when you're sleeping soundly, these neurotransmitters that build these pathways up and make these pathways stronger so that you gain muscle strength in specific patterns, this really happens a lot when you're sleeping. So if you're not sleeping well, it's harder for you to make specific type of motor gains and strength gains. So keeping that in mind, let's take this from the perspective of napping. So let's take a look at some meta-analyses and systematic reviews. And remember, these types of articles tend to be a higher level of evidence because they tend to take in and consider more studies and kind of pull them into their summaries. One of the questions that kept coming up, or one of the themes that I kept seeing when I was looking up these topics, was the duration of naps. And if we're going to look at this first article here, which deals with habitual daytime napping, you can see here in the abstract that when you are taking naps over a certain time frame or a certain duration, it appears to be correlated with an increased risk of adverse health outcomes. And that kind of was shocking to me. And it says here in the article, including all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, and cancer, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. So, but it does say that individuals that have a napping duration of 30 minutes or longer exhibited a higher risk of all this. So there's kind of an inflection point there. What this article is basically saying is that if you're going to take a nap that's 30 minutes or less. So that's definitely something to consider in terms of our nap scheduling. And in addition to trying to keep your naps around 1/2 of an hour, this study right here, as you can see, also brings in another variable in here, talking about the idea of whether you're napping earlier during the day or later during the day. And I hadn't really considered this before, but this article says that taking a late nap, and they also tie this in with frequent napping, meaning maybe napping more than once a day. I've never done that, but these researchers tend to think that late naps are more associated with what they refer to as sleep fragmentation and poorer quality sleep. So what that basically means is that if you're taking a nap later during the day, it may mess up how well you sleep at night. And remember what I talked about earlier, when you're sleeping at night and really getting that deep sleep is when you are really making those neural potentiated gains. So if you're taking a late nap or a long nap or frequent naps, that might actually mess up that process. So definitely something to consider when you're taking a nap. So our next question had to do with cognitive decline and age-related cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. And a lot of the research out there actually points to the idea that taking naps, and short naps at that, same theme once again, tends to be helpful to combat the progression or perhaps try to steer away from these type of diagnoses. Once again, they're saying short daytime napping, they feel, is correlated with a reduced risk of cognitive decline over 5 years of community dwelling older people. So this was a study that drew in 389 individuals. So it's a decent size, all of them senior citizens over the age of 65. And we do know, by the way, that the presence of certain types of plaques and amyloid tissue in the brain that is seen with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, that the brain tends to go in and the immune system tends to go in while you sleep and help to remove this type of tissue. So you want to be getting good sleep. And if that means taking a short nap as well during the day, that may be helping things. Okay, our next topic is sleep, napping, and performance. Now, I can say anecdotally that the high-level athletes, Olympic level athletes that I have seen and treated in my career, a lot of them report that they require a lot more sleep than the regular population. Upwards of 9, 10, 11 hours if they're training really intensely. And this kind of makes sense because they're expending a lot of energy and they're doing a lot of specific sport work. So, in order to make gains and to make motor gains and to improve themselves, they want a lot of restful sleep. So, that makes sense. So, for the rest of us, does taking a nap help with performance? Well, this systematic review here that we're looking at suggests that maybe it does, but it kind of depends on what parameter we're talking about. This article basically concludes that you can see down here that napping seems to be beneficial provided that you're getting normal sleep for performance in a specific activity that they were talking about. That 5M SRT is a type of shuttle run. It does appear to increase in the highest distance that these people are going during this 5-minute test and the total distance. And it also says they have a decrease in what they refer to as a fatigue index. So these are all positive. They do say, however, that it didn't really yield an effect on muscle force increase, but still, if you've got decreased fatigue and an increased kind of performance in distances, if I was a gambling man, I would be taking naps if I was a high level athlete just to get every bit out of my training and competition that I can. If you have any other questions about sleeping, napping, shoot them my way. Or if you have a topic that you want research and discussed that's interesting, I am more than happy to look into it. I'm always looking for ideas. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.